a.m. Eastern Standard Time for about 30 minutes. And it
Good
is being
morning. Good
streamed on multiple
morning.
platforms. So we will welcome others to the stage after we get done closing out those other platforms. But with that being said, I want to go ahead and welcome Alicia Richardson to the stage.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for showing up to Hey Sis Show Up for You and here on Facebook, Morning Motivation. I am so excited. And just to kind of give you guys a brief understanding of what this room is really all about and how it all got started. It's the fact or the whole purpose of the room is to get you to not just feel like you have to get out of the bed, but to feel like that you want to get out of the bed. And that's a different mindset. That's a different shift in how you approach life and how you approach your daily task. And I began doing this just because I was feeling down on myself and not feeling motivated to actually, get up and do the things that I was called to do in my own life. And so as I got up, I said, you know what, let me just do something that will hold me accountable and hold me to really just show up for myself. And so that's what we're doing here, me and Jasmine. We're here showing up so to encourage others to show up for themselves as well. And so, Jasmine, thank you so much for that introduction. That was awesome and amazing. And just a heads up, we are streaming on Facebook, YouTube, as well as here on Clubhouse. So we will jump back and forth. And so, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our topic for today. So far, our series has been on living in abundance, and so we've been going through breaking down the scripture of First Kings chapter 17, um, chapter 17 verses. Let's get there. 12. Actually 10 through 17 or 16. All right, so we've been breaking that down, but today we're not going to go so in depth into it. We're just going to give you guys the different steps and different steps on how to actually live in abundance based off of what we saw in this story or what was reflected in this story. And so, before we get started, I do want to pose a question. Um, and that question is, do you really feel that you are living in abundance? And then the second part to that question is, if not, what do you feel is stopping you from actually living in abundance? And that could be anything, right? It could be the fact that you are that you may not understand like what that true definition is, and if not, you can go back and listen to the replays. It could be the fact of still rehearsing like past traumas and things like that. Like there's so many reasons of why we feel we may not be living in abundance. And so I want you to think about that as we go through the different steps of how the Zarephath woman um, depicted on how to actually enter into abundance or the life of abundance. And so the first thing that she did, or the first thing that actually Elijah showed us that he did, was when he approached her, he asked her if, hey, could you go fetch me some water, and while you're at it, could you get me something to eat? The lady said, hey, listen, as I promise you, I'm literally picking these sticks up so that I can make me and my son's last meal so that we will then die, right? And so Elijah then tells, no, sir, you cannot play your tablet. Elijah then tells her to, hey, don't worry about it. Just do what I asked you to do, and everything's going to work out fine. And so the next action of that woman, right, was, instead of her talking back or sitting here going, back and forth with him, she decided to have faith, right? So Jasmine, what are some thoughts when you look at that? What are some thoughts that you have, and how can you like expound on that first step of beginning with faith, beginning with that first step of faith?
Yes. Okay. So hey, y'all. I want to kind of
But with that being said, yes, Alicia, some of the things that were very interesting when we started talking about the story with the woman and Elijah is that when he told you, you so right, he told her, "Bring me what you have," and then he spoke to her. There were a couple of things that stood out to me about the text, and the first one that stood out to me is that when he spoke to her emotions, this woman had a choice, right? So Alicia posed two questions to y'all. She said, "Do you feel like you're living in abundance?" For this woman, she did not feel like she was living in abundance. Her exact words is, "I'm going to make my last meal so we can eat it and we can die." She did not feel that she had abundance at all. But on top of her not feeling that she did not have abundance, she also she got lost in the idea of what was actually being physically seen. And that what was physically seen for her was that she had a little oil left, she had a little flour left, and that was all that she felt like she could produce with. So when Elijah spoke to her emotions and told her what to do, this woman had two things that she could have done. She could have walked away, she could have cursed him, she could have said no. But the one thing that I want to like highlight and magnify is that this woman took a risk to stand on faith. So that risk to stand on faith for her gave her the not only the faith, but it gave her the courage to go back and to produce and then to distribute. So when you're thinking about the questions that Alicia gave to you today, do you feel like you're living in abundance? Be honest with yourself. The only way and this is one of the things, the only way to really have true transformation and healing in an area of your life is to be honest and concise and consistent. It does not hurt to say, no, I don't feel like this is. Because then you get a chance to ask yourself the question, why do you feel that is? Why do you feel like you don't have abundance? You even get to ask yourself and branch further, right? Well, not only why do I feel like I don't have abundance, but what is stopping me or what is abundance to me? Because the thing is, for a lot of our conversations, abundance looks very different for me than it looks for Alicia. But if we really take the time to ask ourselves these deep questions, and even for that woman, I'm pretty sure when that woman was walking home. Now, this is the thing, y'all. When I read stories, when I read any book, it could be the Bible, it could be my spiritual books, it could be my self development books, whatever I read. If I hear a story and I create a narrative, so I can only imagine this woman being like her mindset, like, man, this is all I got, and he wants me to give my first. He wants me to give my last. He wants me to give my all. Why would I do that? Like, God, should I do that? Like, I know, I said his God, but like for my God, like God, is this something I should do? Is this something I should obey? And then even then, how can I produce this? How can I can imagine that the thoughts that were racing in that woman's head. But the thing that's so important when we think about abundance, it's not necessarily the thoughts and the emotions that race through your head. It's the decision that you make at the end. So when she said, you know what, I'm going to make a decision to give, like, I'm going to make that bread. I'm going to make and produce what I have with what I have. And not only am I going to make and produce that thing, I'm going to give my first. So we talked about it yesterday, you all, right? And the thing we talked about yesterday was when we start talking about the scripture, the woman gave the first, Elijah told her, give me the first small loaf of bread that you make. And then after that, nothing else will run dry. You will have until the Lord says it will rain, right? He says that.
So Jasmine, you listen, you
Oh,
on the right, you in the right vein, but you listen, you moving ahead, you
oh,
moving ahead.
sorry.
However, we done this in steps now.
We got to give them this in steps. Look, you ready to go in, and I listen. And what you said was so good, Jasmine. Jasmine, because you just said a lot, and what you did was you went into the step two portion of it, and that step two was the whole idea of getting that trust, right? So once she had that faith, because not all the time do we have the faith to go out and do something but then trust the process all the way through. You see what I'm saying? So we have to get, once what she did was she began to show her faith in what Elijah was telling her. And then as she's walking away, and I love how you brought up those thoughts, because we're not perfect. And a lot of the times our influence is by what we see. And so our thoughts, we begin to battle within ourselves, like, okay, all right, this is all I got. This man telling me to go do this. Listen, you know what? She probably already coming up with plan B, C, and D in her head as she's walking away. But the whole point is, when it comes to step 2, so step 1 was that faith portion of living in abundance. But step 2 is trusting the process. He told her specifically, all right, lady, don't even worry about it. What I want you to do is go ahead and still do what I asked you to do. And then he didn't say, like, watch God. He didn't say watch God work. He didn't give no inspiring speech on why she should do it. Again, there was no back and forth on the whole in this conversation. It might have been back and forth in her mind, but she still was able to trust the process enough to go do what he asked her to do, right? And so that's what we begin to see as we look in that story. So now, Jasmine, now this is where you was. This part is where you were, right? So when we look at that, the portion of the scripture where she goes, she gets the wood and everything, gives the man the water, gives Elijah the water, and then she goes ahead and she makes that biscuit, and she gives him the first portion of what she would then be able to live off of. But here's what you got to remember. She didn't have what she could live off of. She didn't see that yet. It wasn't there yet. It was simply we only know that now because we're reading it in the text. But if we look at her and stand in her current situation as she stood in it, all she had was that biscuit that she was given to Elijah, that she had already planned to just eat it and die with her son, right? So the what is it, the more, or the abundance, or the what they could definitely live off of forever had not been there yet. So now this is what we talk about. What Jasmine, what you're bringing up is the importance of sowing the first fruits of something. And so, Jasmine, go ahead, because I needed to give them that step 2. You don't ran into step 3. Go ahead, Jasmine, give them that step 3.
Okay, I'm sorry, it wasn't letting me unmute myself on Facebook. But yeah, so like literally, like, and you started talking about it, but trusting that process is so real. Like, if you don't trust the process, you will talk yourself out of it. And the question is someone. Okay, so I was in a room today by the amazing teacher Carter, and she asked the question. She said, "How many of us have been given instructions, have been given thoughts of things that we could have moved on, but we didn't, and we talked ourselves out of doing it. We talked ourselves into sitting, and we never know what could have been produced because we talked ourselves out of it." And that really reflects into that whole idea. If that woman would have let her thoughts talk her out of her promise, talk her out of what she had been asking God for. So that it's in my head, if Elijah was sent to that woman, which it says, the text said he was sent to her, right? If Elijah was sent to that woman, that means that woman asked God, asked the universe, asked whoever. She put something into the atmosphere that she wanted. She said, God, I don't want to eat and die. I want to have surplus. But right now, all I can see is that I will eat and die. So when God sent an answer to what she had been asking for, she may not have thought about it. She may not have even thought that was how her answer would show up, is that she needed to make a loaf of bread. But she trusted she decided to lean in on her faith and say, you know what, you're right. Let me go. You know what? If he said I'm not gonna eat and die, and I did say I didn't want to eat and die, let me go ahead and make this bread. It's nothing to make this bread, because I've been making bread my whole entire life. So that's a narrative that I hear in this woman. But how many of us have talked ourselves out of the process of standing on the things or the promise or the gifts that we have inside of us? And it takes a step back to that reflection. So going back to where we was at is that, when the woman Elijah gave her some clear instructions, right? He gave her a clear blueprint of what she was to do, and that blueprint was go produce, which is go make, use what you have. That means use what you have inside of you. Use what you have in your house. That means if you're creative and you like to draw, paint, dance, whatever it is, it's your secret sauce, it's your gift. Go ahead and do that. Like he told her, go produce. She had been making bread. Like in my opinion, if she I don't know how old her son was, but in my opinion, if she this is something that she's not used to, that she's not from foreign with. She's used to making bread. So because this is something she knows how to do, it's not something that catches her off guard. So the idea that he told her, go produce something that you already do naturally, that speaks the key to yourself. Like, what is it that you do naturally? What is it to something that you consider yourself, like, you consider it, just you cross it out. But guys, like that's something that you can use to produce. That's something you can use to not only produce something new, but to also distribute it. So like, I'm gonna take a step back. For me, I love talking. I love talking. I love teaching. But it was something I'm like, well, I talk and I teach all the time. It's not nothing I'm going to put money on. It's not nothing I'm going to produce with. I'm not going to do any video blogs. Like, I'm just talking to people. Like, I can talk to people any day, all day. But that's a gift that I consider normal. That guys, like, you could use that, but are you choosing to use that, and how are you looking at it? So when that woman shifted to say, you know what, this bread is going to not only be a source of where I won't eat and die, but it's also going to be a part of my surplus, then she was able to shift her mindset about what she had in her house. But the part that we was getting to is that he told her, give the first small loaf of bread. Whatever you make, give me the first piece. So that talks a lot about when it comes down to the idea of the first fruit. So many of us like know about the first fruit. Like, so yesterday it was referred to as a tithe. It was not a tithe, you guys. A tithe and a first fruit are totally two different things that can be talked about in a later thing. But he started talking about the first fruit. So if I was to ask a show of hands, I want you to raise your hand if you know what a first fruit is, or if you've heard of a first fruit. Like, if at all have you heard of it? Okay, I don't have nobody raising their hand. So the first fruit, you guys, was mentioned in Genesis with Cain and Abel. When God asked them to bring the first of what they had, and then he would literally see how, like, he would literally take, like, it was supposed to be devoted towards him. Instead of giving for this woman, I will have to do a whole nother teaching, which I'm okay. I'm excited about that. So now we know what to build on, right? So we can put out more information about the first fruit. But the whole idea was, you take the first of what you give and you give it to someone else. You invest it, you sow it. And because you're investing and you're sowing that, it does not have a limit. Like, but you're giving it as an abundance of God. So if you look at the story of Cain and Abel when they did the first fruit, Cain gave sparingly. He didn't give his best. But Abel gave plentiful. He gave the best of his cattle, his fruit, and everything. So for this woman, literally Elijah told her, give me the first loaf, which is a literally it's like a spiritual law. She gave the first of what she had that was good, so that now she could produce more. And what ended up happening is God blessed it. Like, she didn't know God was going to bless it, but that's what happened, is because she obeyed and she had trust in the process. She had trust in what was going on. She had trust that, she believed that she would not eat and die anymore. She was now able to give the first of what she had to prove that her surplus was going to be blessed. So I'm going to pass it back to Alicia, because I know I just put a lot of information out there.
To the stage. Miss Deanna is the owner of the Intentional Success Tribe, of the Collaboration Container. So good morning and welcome to the stage. Okay, so Jasmine, you always like to go deep all the time. Like, you always like to give that. And I love it because it's the
Listen,
whole
that's my secret sauce. If you didn't know, like, I love to talk, I love to talk. But one thing that you do know me, if you ever build a personal relationship with me, which I love building relationships, y'all, I love it. I love it. and I'm always gonna bring something deep. I'm always gonna open your eyes to something that you did not see. That's just a part of my personality. So hey.
And I love it because it's so needed. It is so needed. And so just, the whole thing of the whole thing of that the first fruits. Another aspect I want to bring to that is, I know a lot of times we tend to sow because we are looking for something specific, or it's something to benefit ourselves, which, okay, cool. But there are times where when we sow, God gives an instruction on how to actually sow that, or what your mindset should be when you sow that. So when we get into the conversation of first fruits, which we will do at a later time, there's so much into understanding the first fruits, and what that means and how it actually impacts your life. But it is a very crucial key to being in abundance. So as we go into the last key or last step of actually obtaining abundance, I want to say this. So I titled this obtaining how to obtain abundance. So here's the flipper, and here's where it's gonna where we switch things up. And that is, you cannot actually obtain abundance. You have to be willing and ready to simply receive it. Okay, does that make sense? We just have to receive the abundance. So the lady, yes, there were keys and steps on how to usher her into the abundance. But once she made and once she did what she did, there was nothing left for her to do except just receive the extra, or the or the what was left, right? So it said that after she gave Elijah the his biscuit, he said, "Now go back and eat your food. Eat, you and your son just eat." And they had enough food to last them through the drought until the rain would come again and actually produce harvest from the ground itself. So that's a concept all in its own. Is how do we begin to receive? How is it possible that we can literally have faith enough to receive, just simply receive, because our mindset is we always got to do something, pay this, pay that, just to get what's already ours, right? Abundance is already yours. You were actually called to live here on earth, to live inside of your abundance. So if you're not living in your abundance, that's why I posed the question in the beginning, right? I posed that question in the beginning, which is, do you feel like you're living in abundance? Okay. So Jasmine, you a little giddy over there. What do you have to add? And then once you're done, that was the fourth key, the fourth step. And we're gonna open up the floor for some dialogue, and we're gonna close out Facebook, right? We're gonna close out Facebook, and then we're gonna open the floor on Clubhouse to open up for some dialogue.
Yes. Okay, so you all. So if you click on the link above, you'll see the Canva link to the 2 questions that Alicia asked you at the beginning of this Hey Sis Show for You motivational talk. And that was, do you feel that you are living in abundance? If not, what is stopping you? Okay. So if you click on that link, you'll see those 2 questions. But some of the things that Alicia pointed out is, sometimes we get conditioned to this mindset that I need to work, sweat, blood, and tears in order to get what is good, or to live the good life. And that is totally opposite and contrary to spiritual concepts. So if you don't know these people, go ahead and look them up. I'm gonna name drop them. So Abraham Hicks, just reading books on abundance by JT Linton, and there's a multitude of people. So if you want more information, go ahead and back channel me abundance, and I can send you those links to the material, because the thing is, like, knowledge is your wealth. Knowledge is one form of wealth. So when you know something, it literally expands your mind so that you can do something. But Alicia was right. When you start looking at abundance and you start looking at spiritual concepts, what they teach you is this idea that when you receive something, when you step into abundance, it's not the idea that you'll never get it. The idea is that you have to literally increase your faith, increase your vibrations to believe that you can receive such a thing. Because if we were honest, a lot of us ask for things and we have not yet positioned ourselves to receive. We have not even increased our faith to even say that this is what I'm going to get, this is what I'm going to work for. So like, and it's not even work for, this is what I'm going to get and this is what I shall receive. This is what my faith is. So when I'm taking it back to like yesterday, right? When we talked about abundance, the whole concept of abundance is that I will receive, I live in an overflow. And if you know that you yourself, abundance is not an external thing, it is a spiritual concept. But even with it being in a spiritual concept, it speaks a lot about you knowing who you are and whose you are. So when you know who you are and you know whose you are, you know that you will never run out. But that comes in being confident in who you are, confident in whose you are, and confident that because of who and whose you are, things will always come to you. You will always be blessed. You will be blessed all the days that you spend on earth. That literally you are provided for in every aspect. But the idea is we put so much attention and focus onto only looking at what we have. And when you look at what you have, you never allow your mind and your brain to expand to what you can receive or what's the possibilities. So I love how like the Bible talks about it. The Bible talks about it. Creatives talk about it. If you look at speakers or anything, y'all see I'm excited about this. But if y'all look at speakers or anything, you will see how they say never allow yourself to be limited, your possibilities to be limited. The more endless possibilities your imagination flows, the more you're able to produce and create because you're not giving yourself a cutoff. So like the idea of like, when people say, I just want to reach this, I just want to reach that, you're putting a cap and a limit on yourself instead of saying, I'm welcome and open to release so I can receive, to release anything that is not working for me. But I'm also open and welcome to literally get in, to my hands are open to receive all that is divinely right and that belongs to me. If I'm open to it, then 9 times out of 10, I'm now increasing myself and putting myself in position where I can now bring forth a thing, and now I can now step into a thing, and it literally just shows up for me. There have been so many times, countless times in my life, where I've literally said, you know what? I was always taught I need to work for things. I have to sweat blood and tears. If I don't have it, I got to figure it out. And that put me in a space where I was always trying to run after things, always looking at things from a deficit, always saying I'll never have enough. But when I took a chance to step back and do some inner searching to say, I need to look at what's inside of me, one. And not only do I need to look at what's inside of me, I need to discover who I am, because as I know who I am and whose I am, I now understand that I don't have to do anything but literally use the gifts that God has given me. Use everything that He's given me. So like, instead of me trying to say, I'm going to go out and get this fancy certificate, get this, get that, do everything everybody else told me, once I release the definitions of other people off of my life, I'm able to produce and create anything and everything that I could possibly be. And it's this idea and concept goes back to being childlike, right? Because when you ask a child what they want to be when they grow up, what they tell you, they give you like 50 million definitions. I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an artist. I want to be a dancer. I want to go this. I want to be president. I want to, like, their mindsets are so open to saying I can be anything and everything that I want to be. I can do anything and achieve anything that I want to do and to be. But that only happens when you release yourself from the definitions of who you thought you were, who you thought you were going to become. Sis, become everything. If you look at my Clubhouse bio right now, I might tell y'all 3 titles. I started off in my introduction. I'm a child of God, I'm a Godpreneur, and I'm a business strategy consultant. Those are 3 titles. But if you really go down and you look at my profile, it says I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a speaker, I'm an advocate. I got my LSW. I mean my Masters of Social Work. I got all this stuff, right? I have all of these different things that are components of me, but all to the bottom of my core, I am a child of God. And the reason is because I can literally use all those titles to fit the people that I need to serve. So every time I'm interacting with somebody, my role will change. But at the same time, I'm not just that one thing. And when you give yourself that, then you allow yourself to live in abundance. You're no longer putting yourself in a block and in a limit. So this is Jasmine. I'm complete. Sorry.
All right, good morning. All right, so thank you all. I hope this message was awesome. I think y'all had missed me a few times because I forget to take myself off mute sometimes. But thank you for joining me. I hope this topic was amazing. We will be back here again tomorrow at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time to continue in our series of living in abundance. See, this was amazing and awesome as always. So I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you for watching. And if you're watching the replay, thank you so much. If you are on Clubhouse, if you want to continue in the conversation, you can always join us for that aftermath or after the after party. We call it an after party for the conversation and dialogue. But you can also write your comments inside of the comments on Facebook. So I will talk to you later. Have an amazing, amazing, amazing day. Until tomorrow. See you then.